Thank you for attending, and we welcome you to our webinar on the transition of IEC 62368. We're really excited to talk to you about it today as it's a really timely topic. Before we get started, we just want to introduce to you who we are that are presenting to you today. So with me today is Glenn Eswine, who's our product marketing manager at Astrodyne TDI for our low power product line. I myself am Holly Romali, and I'm in charge of the strategic marketing at Astrodyne TDI. So we'll be your host for today. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to Glenn, who will be presenting for us today.
Thanks, Holly. So welcome, everybody. My name is Glenn Eswine. I'm a product marketing manager in the low power business unit of Astrodyne. And today I want to talk to you about the new IEC 62368 safety standard. I'll cover things like top level view of what the standard is and how it came about, how that affects power supply products, which are near and dear to us, and talk about how it's being adopted globally in various countries around the world today. And then we'll also give you some contact information so you can get support from us for your needs regarding navigating the transition to 62368. So the IEC 62368 standard is a new product safety standard. And what it's doing is it's meant to cover both information technology equipment and audiovisual equipment. Now today, those two groups of products are covered by two different standards, the IEC 60950 standard and the IEC 60065 standard. So 60950 covers IT equipment, things like data servers and laptop computers, and yes, power supplies. And the IEC 60065 standard covered more audiovisual things like speakers, wireless speakers, digital media players, things like projectors and cameras. So now the IEC has decided that they're going to combine these two into one safety standard called 62368. And one of the focuses of 62368, which is different from the previous standards, is that it focuses on hazard-based safety versus incident-based regulation. So what does that mean? What it means is it's sort of a philosophical approach saying what we want to do is look at the product and what are the things that can cause danger in the product and make sure that we're making appropriate safety measures to guard against dangerous situations resulting from those sources. Incident-based was more along the lines of, hey, I had a short that caused somebody to get shocked or caused a fire. And what we want to do is we want to, think of ways and make rules that say that you have to use certain insulation thicknesses or certain spacings to prevent a short. IEC 62368 certainly will use those remedies, but it focuses on the source more than the incident itself. And once the 62368 standard is widely adopted, it will supersede both 60950 and 60065. And what we're going to talk about today is how that's starting to happen. So maybe the first question is, why would the IEC develop a new standard? What was wrong with the original standards? Well, the IEC recognized that there are evolving technologies and evolving products. They're becoming more universal. There's less distinction between an information technology product and an audiovisual product. And so they recognize the need to have a standard that encompasses everything universally. The standard also focuses on enhancing risk management activities. So again, we talked about the sources of potential hazard, and the standard focuses on managing those sources and reducing risk, even for products that don't exist today. So they're looking forward to newer products with new architectures, a group of products with varying architectures, and being able to cover all of those as well. In addition, they're looking at future-proofing for the next generation of products. So the new combined standards are covering a group of products that's being called information and communication technology equipment, or ICT. So I think you'll start to see the ICT acronym being used a little more in favor of ITE or ITE and AV. So Astrodyne, primarily for two of our business units at least, we focus on developing power conversion solutions or power supplies. So of course, we're thinking very clearly, how does this new standard impact power supply certification? So first thing we'll identify is that this standard applies to both embedded and external adapter power supplies, with the exception of power supplies that are used for medical applications. So medical application power supplies are covered under the IEC 60601 standard, and so would not have to meet necessarily would not have to be certified to 62368. However, in many cases, we do certify our products to both standards at the same time so they can be used more universally. Compliance testing is an area where you might start to see some differences also. So between IEC 60950, which is primarily used for non-medical power supplies today, and 62368, the testing is going to be similar but not exactly the same. And it's going to come back to that focus of the philosophy of making sure that you're mitigating risk against hazardous sources of power versus you're avoiding particular known failure situations. So some designs that have an IEC 60950 certification now may require some modifications to meet the new IEC 62368, but many of them may not. So it actually depends on the particular design and the features of that design and how the new standard gets applied to it.
Good, Glenn.
So, thank you. So what we saw from the poll was many people are starting to do the transition. Some people have some questions about what do I need to do. So what I'm going to do in the second half of the presentation is talk about how this new standard is getting adopted globally and what you can do and what we can do to support you to meet the new standard. So one of the key dates is December 20th of this year. And that's the date at which the European Union countries will start mandating the IEC 62368 standard. And they will no longer accept products with the 60950 standard, with some exceptions. So you may have heard that date around already. You may have people who are trying to panic because of that date. One of the messages I want to say today is you may not need to panic. So we'll talk about that because not all countries have adopted the 62368 standard. In fact, some countries do not accept the 62368 standard at all. There are other countries that have adopted the 62368 standard, but are still allowing to use products that are certified to 60950. So my little map here in the bottom right shows that blue in the middle, the European Union, that's the area which says, nope, as of December 20th, no more 60950 standard. Everything has to be 62368, with maybe a couple of exceptions. In the US and Canada, in Japan, and in other areas like Australia and New Zealand, the 62368 standard is supported, but it's not mandatory yet. And to date, I do not know of any specific date when it will become mandatory. So we'll talk about that in a little more detail. Grandfathering rules, there are some grandfathering rules in most of the countries which will still allow the use of 60950 certified products. So we'll get to that in just a couple of slides. So here's a short list of countries around the world and their status regarding 62368. So you can see the top group, those are all countries that have approved the 62368 standard and are accepting it as of now. And in the bottom, countries like China, Taiwan, Korea, they are not yet accepting the 62368 standard. So for those countries in the lower half, you still need to ship a 60950 certified product into that country. For countries that are accepting the 62368 standard so far, Europe, the European Union, is the only set of countries that is mandating a switchover from 60950, and that's on the December 20th date later this year. Everybody else has not said, nope, we're not going to take 60950 product. Everybody still is. There's a little bit of a nuance in Japan where they are no longer accepting 60950 products that are Amendment 1 only. You have to have Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 60950 certifications to be accepted in Japan. And that was as of the middle of last year. So if you look at this overall, if you have a lot of business in Europe, or in fact any business in Europe, yes, you need to pay particular attention right now. It's urgent that you take action very soon. But for almost anybody else in the world, it's not an emergency situation. Your current product can still ship to those countries. Okay, so I mentioned that there were some grandfathering examples, and here's a couple. I'm sure there are more, but these focus on the US and Europe. So in the US, products with an IEC 60950 certification that were certified prior to December 20th of this year, they're going to continue to be allowed forever. So you never have to modify that product or recertify it to 62368. It can maintain its current 60950 certification for as long as you want to ship it. Products that are certified to 60950 after December 20th, 2020 may in the future not be allowed to be shipped without a 62368 certification. So there is some incentive to start getting 62368 certifications for the US and Canada, but again, not an emergency. And definitely on your newer products, you want to pursue it, but for legacy products, you don't need to. In the European Union, they're a little more rigid, right? So they want all new products shipping with the 62368 certification. But there is an exception where if the 60950 certified product is being used in a system, as long as that system is certified to 62368, and it may be able to with a 60950 component in it, then you can still ship the product for use in that system. So again, it's that one, I guess you could look at it as if the European Union situation, if the 60950 product is viewed as a component in a higher system, as long as that system is certified 62368, it can be used without an updated certification. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion about this in the marketplace. So again, I get questions all the time. Wait, isn't it true that I can't ship any 60950 product after December 20th of this year? No, that's not true. Okay, again, the European Union is the only region which is going to stop accepting products certified to 60950. And there are some of those exceptions like we talked about just before with the grandfather. Another question that I received recently was that somebody received a notice from TUV, right? TUV is an internationally recognized certification test house, and like UL. And TUV sent out some sort of like warning notices to all of their customers saying, hey, just so you know, your EN 60950 certification that you did 6 months ago is going to expire and no longer be valid as of December 20th. So while that's true, it's not an emergency situation because probably, and you should check on this, probably that product was also certified with the CB scheme, right? So the EN 60950 standard is the European flavor of the IEC 60950 standard. And because Europe is not going to accept that standard after December 20th, they're revoking it as of December 20th. However, the product was probably certified to the universal IEC 60950 standard. So that certification is still very much valid for shipment to other countries around the world. So here's a graphical depiction of what I mean about the way the universal standard works against a country-specific standard. So what happens is, the IEC is a standards body, and they generate a standard that says, this is what we recommend everybody adhere to. But then the individual countries decide for themselves whether or not they're going to adopt that standard. And in doing so, they frequently make minor amendments to that standard. They either add specific things, or even in some cases, they remove specific requirements. So for example, UL in the United States has their own version of 60950. The European Union had their own version. Japan has their own version. Australia, etc. So although the European Union is no longer going to be making EN 60950 a valid certification, The fact that you do the CB certification scheme, which takes into account all the different variations across all the different countries that accept the standard, that CB certification gives you a universal IEC 60950 certification that can be used. So what is Astrodyne doing and how can we help you in your transition? So one thing we're doing is on all our new products, we are obtaining the IEC 62368 certification to match, the 60950 and in many cases the medical certification that we have. We're also going back on many of our present or legacy products and having the testing redone to add the 62368 certification. But, given that some of the products are older and depending on, the need, we're not certifying all of our existing products to 62368. So if you have any specific questions, we're happy to answer them. We think that the best thing to do is to contact our sales team or our customer service group, and they should be able to help you. And if you have any questions regarding 62368 or 60950, or even the IEC 60601 medical safety standards, we're happy to help you and guide you.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Glenn, that they can contact customer service. We also have here a chart to show everybody who your regional sales manager is based on which territory your company is in. We have their contact information here as well as on our website. You're welcome to reach out to them at any point and they can get you tied in with our FAEs to help you work through these transitions, to answer any questions you might have about the standards or which power supplies you need in order to comply with the new standards. So we've got a great team to support you and to be here for you during this transition. Our e-catalog is also up on the website. I've included the 2 links here to access those catalogs, our power supply catalog and our EMI filter catalog. So again, a full suite of products to help you with this transition. And with that, we just want to open up for a quick Q&A. If there's any questions, you can click on the Q&A button and type your question into that panel. And we'll take a few questions here. If there's anybody who has questions for us about the standards or transitioning or how we might be able to help, feel free to type those questions in. I want to thank everybody for participating today and taking the time to listen to our teaching on the IEC 62368 and some of the things to look for as you transition. I also want to thank Glenn for presenting for us today and for sharing with us his research that he's gone through for supporting his own product line and for sharing that knowledge with all of you. Thanks again. All right, and I'll leave the Q&A open here for a few minutes just in case anybody has any questions. All right, so the question, Glenn, is, are there going to be products that have dual standards, that have both 60950 and 62368, given that there are some countries who haven't yet adopted the new standard?
Yes, absolutely. So all of the new products that we're developing for non-medical applications are going to be certified to both the 60950 standard and the new 62368 standard. In addition, many of those products will also be certified to the medical 60601 standard. So in fact, most of our new products are going to have triple certifications. And then, as I said before, we are selectively going back and getting a 62368 certification added to many of our older 60950 certified products.
And if someone is going through an update to one of their old product lines, so say they're doing a revamp or something like that, then if they don't certify that product by the given date, they would not be grandfathered in the US, right? There was that date that they had to be tested by in order to count for the grandfathering. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that grandfathering date in the US applies to new products only. So anything that's already been certified to 60950 prior to December 20th of this year can ship forever with a 60950 certification into the US. Theoretically, I mean, at some point, the US could decide to.
Right, they could always change their mind, but
right. But any new product that gets released that gets certified after December 20th of this year, if it's not a 62368 certification, then they may choose not to allow it.